So let's go back. Let me just make a couple of comments about what you said, but then I want to go back to February too. So transparency to me. So the way I look at the United States, our country has faults. There's no doubt. You can read the newspapers. I actually don't recommend that, but our country has faults. Everybody knows it. But as General Dunford once said in front of Congress, we're the good guys. And when you're one of the good guys, you shouldn't be worried about, being completely transparent with what happens on the ground around the world. It's just factual behavior. And in today's day and age, when you have a cell phone, you can take a picture of anything around the world and boom, it's right there.
Yep.
So if you're the good guy, it's to our advantage to have people showing what is happening anywhere around the world. And sometimes, like in the middle of Eastern Europe, it's very difficult to get factual information about what is happening. But with the advent of ubiquitous space imagery, and that's what a number of companies now provide, but Planet being one of them, we have the ability to show what happens around the world. And that is to the advantage of the United States of America. It's the advantage of everybody that has the desire for freedom around the world to understand what is really going on. And the other amazing thing that it does to me is it eliminates the false narrative, especially if it's timely. Because when bad things happen around the world, the people that initiate those bad things almost always try to put out a false narrative. Vladimir Putin is probably the best at that. A false narrative always comes out. But boom, when there is a picture of facts on the ground that's actually happening right now, everything changes because now you have truth. And truth is the most powerful thing on this planet, no pun intended. And so shortly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the second Russian invasion of Ukraine this year, Planet and others started putting out imagery of what's happening on the ground. So tell me about your decision process, how you decided where to put the imagery, and what kind of feedback you got from that, from others around the world.
Yeah, well, I think the Ukraine example is one of two things that has really shifted the defense and intelligence community to embrace commercial and unclassified data. So let me talk about Ukraine first. With our system doing the undiscriminate scan of the Earth every day, you can see quite a bit of troop buildup. And you can see the indications of that happening where the pattern of life was one where it didn't seem like it was just a mere exercise. But having that information available, where you can see beyond like what you're tasking, you see all of context, really not only did that allow for the US and our allies understand what was happening, but it also allowed for other nations too as well, where they're able to take a look at information and see the emerging risk. And that leads to coordinated action. I think, so great, we knew that this risk was coming up. The cabinets around the world were already talking about it, understanding that that action was about to occur. And then on February 14th, there was a false flag exercise where Vladimir Putin said that he was withdrawing. And the same exact day, the pontoon bridge popped up across Belarus, showing that in fact they were invading in from the other side. Because that was available immediately, journalists got it. The public narrative changed. It allowed for the United States and others to more or less say this is a belligerent actor, and they're not honest. And for that to happen so quickly, getting in the OODA loop of a belligerent actor, it changes the equation. And that also then allowed for coordinated action, whether it's sanctions. It allowed for more aspects of free societies to understand the emerging risks so that they can make their contributions in their highest way, whether it is a humanitarian organization that is collecting facts and data on the ground for potential violations of the Geneva Convention, or humanitarian organizations to anticipate the movement of millions of refugees and foodstuffs and services to be most efficient and effective. And also surprisingly, because the narrative was out there, the world knew what was happening. Citizens were able to really allow for our elected officials to move fast. And citizens are also employees. And so one of the things I think that wasn't coordinated, but actually happened, was because the public sentiment was one where we were recognizing what was happening on the ground. Global companies unilaterally pulled out of doing business in Russia. And so I think that we're going to see more and more of these things over time. And this is one of those this is one of those things where it's a bit of a revolution of military affairs. We'll look back at this war in a couple of years more clearly and see where unclassified and open and commercial data allowed for, cell phones on the ground and satellite imagery from above for researchers and journalists to triangulate truth on the ground and tell that story in near real time. I think that if this occurred in 5 years from now, we would have seen those emerging risks much more and actually mitigated more of the conflict. But being able to actually have real-time information about what's happening really informs the public and collective action.
I think I've told you this story before, but the first time that really was critical to me, I was early in my time as the vice chairman, early in the General Miller's time as the chairman, when shortly after the Soleimani strike, Iran attacked Al-Assad Air Base with ballistic missiles, and we had all of the classified information that told us exactly what was going on, exactly how they were trying to attack Al-Assad, and it was clear that they were trying to kill Americans because of the pattern. But we couldn't tell anybody because all the information we had was classified.
Yep.
And then Planet, it showed the actual missile strikes on the ground at Al-Assad, and it was a clear pattern. It was a pattern of where the strikes happened. It's a pattern of where our people would be in large unison if we didn't have warning and get out of the way. And as soon as we had those pictures, we could then sit in front of the media, in front of Congress, in front of the world, and say, this is what Iran was actually trying to do, because of the unclassified imagery that was right there. And that's also allowed us to take forward and declassify some of our classified capabilities in order to move that narrative forward. Because again, truth in a free society is a good thing. And that's what we should always push. And if we ever screw up and the truth points a finger back at us, that's okay too. That's the way our nation should work. So
I think that example is also one where it was hard, because with that same information, you can do battle damage assessment, and the Iranians didn't have their own sovereign capability. They can get it through some of their allies, but having that information really quickly is something that then could result to another strike. And so there's this balance between how much openness we actually we do and how quickly it is available. And I think that is something that we're going to learn how to do that together as a coordinated team. It's going to earn trust. And there are some situations where, in fragile states and personally identifiable information that one can collect from space as well. We really have to think about those unintended consequences. And so it's not as straightforward as open it all up. It's something that actually we need to ease together and change the equation so that free societies are the one who win in the open. And so it is a transition. But I think once we actually retool up to see the value of openness as critical toward how we operate, toward how we actually tell a story and have coordinated action, when we actually tool up to do that, we're going to really accelerate the openness. And I think that we're in that stage right now.
Yeah, and I think you said it right earlier when you said this is a very critical point in history. And it's a history that the commercial sector of the United States is still where innovation is happening. It's amazing the innovation that's happening. But we in the Department of Defense, we have to figure out how to leverage that and be partners in that as we go forward. And there's a policy discussion of that partnership that goes forward too. And it's very complicated. And it's not just an easy Great. It does not open up the floodgates and just dump everything on the world. You actually have to make moral decisions about what you're going to do. And ideally, you want to make that in partnership with the people that are going to have to live with those decisions. And in many cases, that's the United States Defense and our services. So this is going to be an interesting world we live into. But I'm just thrilled that I get to thank you publicly for taking a risk a few years ago and leaving NASA and walking into a world where you actually didn't know what was going to happen. But that's what innovation is about. And that's what this country is about. It's about people like you who take a chance and you have a vision for what the future can be. And then the vision becomes actually a lot bigger and a lot more complicated than anything you saw. But because you started down that path, yeah, you're helping make the world a better place. So thanks very much for doing that. And I appreciate you allowing me to and America's Future Series to recognize you today. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, General Hyten. It's an honor.
Thank you.
General, thank you very much. First of all, for the award in your name on behalf of the America's Future Series, and also spending the time you just did with Robbie. And Robbie, you must be quite the gentleman, because for the general to say you're the recipient of this award, that's above and beyond. So congratulations on the award, and congratulations for all you continue to do for our great nation. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.